Thank you. Good evening. Oh, is this thing on?
Hello?
You can't hear me?
I can, but I'm not.
Just remember to kiss the mic.
It's on. Well, oh.
Here we go.
Hi. Yay. I know I've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks in the fundraiser, so my voice temporarily left me. That's what it was. I'm Christa Wessel, the morning host at All Classical Portland. This is where the applause usually comes.
Don't forget that.
Not for me, but for the station, which is celebrating its 30th year this year, an all classical station, 30 years, right? So thank you so much for supporting the music with continued contributions. And if you weren't aware that Portland had a classical station, we're at 89.9. Anyway, I'm Christa, and this lovely lady is Jessica Sindell, who's the principal flutist of our Oregon Symphony.
Hello, everybody.
Jessica has brought out her flute, and she's promised to play it for us, which I'm excited.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, considered a little bit of a warm-up.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Jessica, you've only been here for a little over a year, is that right?
Since January of 2012, so.
And you came from?
School.
I'm not betraying any secrets and letting you know that Jessica is 23 years old.
Correct.
I wonder if you're the youngest principal musician in the symphony's ever had. Do you have any idea?
I think before me it might have been Neil. Don't quote me though. There was someone who was my age. It was like a quarter of a century, I think they said, since they hired someone my age.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
23 years old. She didn't even finish her graduate degree before landing this job, which I think is exceptional.
Thanks.
So that graduate degree that you didn't even finish, you started, you were enrolled for like what, one semester or something at San Francisco?
This is what happened. I came back from the Aspen Music Festival, and I started my master's at the San Francisco Conservatory, where I started studying with Timothy Day. He's the current principal flutist of the San Francisco Symphony's incredible teacher, flutist. And don't quote me, I think the audition was maybe around October or so. So, we squeezed in a few lessons, and I took this audition, and I was chosen among another flutist. It was kind of a tie between us, and we were both given a trial with the orchestra, and I was counting down the days waiting to get a phone call, at least hoping I would, and they offered me the job. So, I was at school for a few months. But, yeah.
So you had an undergraduate degree, but...
Yes, correct, from Eastman School of Music.
But you haven't completed your graduate degree. There's really no need to. You got a job.
It's kind of nice. I don't mind that.
And one thing you shared with me the other day when we were getting to know each other is that you took out a bunch of student loans for your graduate program.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, they gave me a little bit of a scholarship, which was nice, but I don't think the school has that much money yet. It's they just built a new school. So I owe the government $30,000 on top of Eastman. Oh, that's another story. So, I signed for my loans, and as soon as I won the job, I guess it was too late to ask for them back. So I'm basically paying back school that I didn't go to. But this is totally worth it. It's okay. I'd rather pay $50,000 to be here.
I've talked to a number of musicians in the orchestra over the years who tell me about years of taking audition after audition, hoping to land a coveted job in a great symphony orchestra. How many auditions for professional orchestras like this did you take before you got this job?
This was my first one. It was a different experience for me because I didn't really know what to expect for an orchestral audition. You hear stories, but you don't really know what the environment's going to be like, the atmosphere, how the people are going to be. Actually, it was kind of fun for me because when I got to the finals, it was like the top 20. A lot of the people were my friends from school, so we kind of were rooting each other on. At least I was. I don't know. So I tried to think positively.
And so do you think, I have to wonder, as somebody who hasn't had a lot of auditions under their belt and you didn't know what to expect, were you exceedingly nervous because of that, or?
First round, yes. I didn't know what it would be like. But I found out later on that that's how all the rounds were going to be until the final, which is here in front of Carlos and the committee without a curtain. So as it went on, actually, I was always a little bit nervous before each round, and as soon as I got out there, I completely forgot about my troubles, and I was just there to sound as beautiful as possible and play the music, which was really awesome. I'm glad that happened. So.
Well, obviously you play beautifully. In fact, I asked your second flutist, Alicia, I asked her about your audition because she was on the committee, and she said, hands down, it was some of the most beautiful flute playing she had ever heard in her entire life.
Oh, thanks, Alicia, if you watch this. That's sweet of her.
So, one interesting thing about tonight's concert in Dvorak's 8th Symphony, there is a really tough flute part that is often
asked for at auditions.
In auditions, right.
It's a major flute excerpt. They asked for it here. I don't recall if I played it, but I've been wanting to play the symphony since college a few years ago. So I'm really excited to do this. It's in the last movement, so I'm sure you'll be able to tell when it happens. Hopefully I do it well.
Would you be willing to play that for us?
This excerpt I don't have memorized, but I'm happy to play something else.
Yeah, would you mind taking out the flute and showing us and telling us a little bit about the instrument?
Okay, yeah, I'll try to do this with one hand.
No, I can hold this too.
Okay.
Well, I'll fill. From a perspective of a French horn player, this is a completely foreign instrument to me. And one thing I find interesting, horn players were always trying out new mouthpieces and new little doodads. And I have to, when you buy a flute, do you buy a whole flute or do you mix and match pieces?
I mixed and match, and that's what most people do because there's so many different variations on head joints, different brands. Nowadays, way back then, it used to be just either like a Powell or a Haynes. I have an older Powell, but now, there's so many companies now, so it's up to the person. But, yeah.
So the head joint is the part that you blow into, I would assume.
Correct.
And how many pieces? There's 3 pieces in this flute.
Yes. There are three pieces. And I'm going to put it together, taking slower than my flute.
And can I ask, this might be a rude question, you can refuse to, how much do flutes normally cost?
Mine cost about $8,000, which was a great deal. Normally, the one I'd like to move up to is about $30,000. My parents love me right now. No, I have a job, so there's no excuse.
That's what you should have done with your student loans.
I know, right? That was a new flute right there. So that's next on my list. But the older Powells have this really dark sound that I take a lot of pride in. And the newer instruments, they're really easy and agile. They're easy to play, but a lot of people say, the rumor is that the older instruments, it's kind of like a Stradivarius in a way. It's got just that dark quality that can't be mimicked. But I think I'd like something that could be easier to play in orchestra as well.
And how old is this one that you have?
This was made, I believe, in 1979. And it was played in the New York Phil. It was played in the Cleveland Orchestra. This belongs to, or did belong to, Mary Kay Fink, who is now the piccolo player of the Cleveland Orchestra, and she was also a teacher of mine.
And she got it from somebody who played the New York Philharmonic?
She actually played in there before she won Cleveland. She played piccolo, and a little bit of this. So it's a special instrument.
Oh, what a lovely lineage! Yeah. Can you tootle on your flute a little for us?
Let's see. Okay, don't judge me. I could do a fast excerpt, a little bit of Midsummer Night's Dream. A little bit of it.
Nice. Now, can I ask, from being just you're pretty much still a wee lass at 23, but when you were even weeer, was flute your desired instrument from a little girl? How did that work for you?
No. So my mother is a pianist, and so she kind of, I don't know, I feel like a lot of mothers do this. She forced me to start taking piano lessons, and I hated it. I thought it was really boring. No offense to pianists. It just didn't work. It didn't click with me. And I took it for 5 years, and I still could only read one clef. I don't know what happened there. It just didn't click. So then my mother noticed that I loved singing and acting, so I took to the stage for quite a bit. But then my grades were suffering because that's all I wanted to do. So she pulled me out of that, and she thought maybe we could do something more serious like the flute, or a classical instrument. So the story on how I chose the flute, it was in 5th grade. They had a room full of instruments, and they brought all the students there, and they asked them to choose what they wanted. And this is I don't know if I should tell this story. For Hanukkah, my dad bought me a bracelet, and it was a silver bracelet. And I immediately was drawn to the flute because it matched my bracelet. And it's a true story. And so I was like, this is a perfect magic wand to my princess attire. But the amazing thing with that is that it was a great choice because it's the closest to I believe it's the closest to the human voice, kind of like the oboe too. But, I feel like I'm singing when I'm playing this, and I guess like a little princess too. So it worked out well.
That's the sweetest. I wonder how many of us have stories like that. That's how similar how I landed on the French horn too. It was kind of a fluke. It was the French horn was the shortest line in the gym that day. Everybody was lined up for the flute and the trumpet. My parents steered me towards the French horn. Try this one, Christa.
I love it.
There you go.
And then it works out.
For those of you who just entered, this is Jessica Sindell. She is the relatively new principal flutist of our Oregon Symphony, and hopefully can convince you to play a little bit more in a little while too. But I would also like for you in the back of your brain to think about a question you might have of a flutist or an orchestral musician. Jessica's agreed to take some questions in a few minutes.
Absolutely, yeah.
You briefly mentioned that your parents were musical.
Yes.
Your family is very musical.
Very musical family.
You have a very well-known aunt in town.
Aunt Carol.
Carol
Sindell.
And she is a violin teacher, violin player. She's. Did you tell me that she studied with
Jascha Heifetz.
Jascha Heifetz, yeah.
It's actually, I would grow up, and when she would come over, she'd tell me these amazing stories. She was a prodigy violinist. She studied with Jascha Heifetz, and I'm not sure what the exact age was. I think she was 11 or 12. She was the youngest violinist to play solo in front of the Cleveland Orchestra. And I believe she played the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, and she played when George Zell was conducting there, and she was very much loved in Cleveland. She studied with Gingold, so yeah, she was a fantastic solo violinist, and now she just really enjoys teaching out here. So it's cool that I landed in this city.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
Oh, yeah.
So when you took your very first audition for a professional orchestra, were you like aiming, I want to win this one, this is my first one, I want to win it, or were you just...
I just wanted to do it for the experience. I mean, I was actually terrified of just the idea of auditioning for an orchestra. It was a terrifying concept until I got there, and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun. But I talked to I'd never been to Portland, so I was really excited to just visit my aunt and just have this experience. And she's like, okay, after your first round, we'll go shopping, or, I'll take you to get coffee. And then I was like, Aunt Carol, I made the next round. And then every night I came back and I was like, I made the next round, Aunt Carol. So we didn't have much fun till I won. So I didn't really get to enjoy Portland while I was here.
Well, you're making up for it now.
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely. I love this city so much.
And I don't want to make it sound like you went to school and then took your one and only audition ever and then flukily landed this job, because you've auditioned for summer festivals and orchestras within the college experience and things like that.
Right.
What kind of other ensembles have you auditioned for? Summer festivals and what?
Okay, so this is unbelievable. It took me 3 years to get into the Aspen Music Festival, and I guess nowadays they're great recording devices. What the students record, send in a tape, and there's like thousands of CDs the faculty has to listen through. And I didn't know, I recorded mine in the bathroom, which apparently is the worst place to record your excerpts. So I thought I sounded great with the echo, but you need to have those you need to have a professional doing those for you. So finally, I figured that out by my junior year. I had a professional CD sent to the Aspen Music Festival, and I got in my senior year, or after I graduated, I went that summer. And they said that I was the first flutist to be rejected 3 times and then all of a sudden get the biggest scholarship. So I was really excited about that. But it ended up being the best training of my life. If anyone here has kids who are going into music, I played in a conducting orchestra, and it was kind of like a New World Symphony experience. I played principal the entire summer for 8 weeks, and there were like 6-hour rehearsals a day. It was incredible. And not to mention that in Aspen, what is for breathing? What is that called?
Oh, the Alexander technique or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's harder to breathe up there. Is what I'm trying to say.
The thin air.
The thin air. Yeah. I mean, I saw Lance Armstrong on his bicycle going by sometimes, but it really trained me to breathe differently when I was out there. So when I came to sea level, I was ready for this audition. But that was, exquisite training. That was amazing for me. Changed my life.
And so you played in the Aspen Festival for how many years?
Oh, so this will be I'm going for one more summer. I got another fellowship to play second flute there, which is exciting because I play with the principal flutist in this orchestra are some of my teachers. Remy Smin, or the principal of Philadelphia, is going to be playing principal, and I'll play second to him. So it's a wonderful experience for me.
What would that be like, being principal here and then spending the summer playing second flute and then coming back next fall and playing first again? Is that kind of
I did that last summer, and I thought it was an amazing experience to just sit back. I'm not putting down second flute as a really difficult job. You have to blend with the first flute. It's different, though. It's just all about playing with the first. You don't really look as much up at the conductor, in my opinion. So it's a different experience, but watching another principal flutist take on solos, especially some of which that we're doing this year, was really eye-opening for me and helpful. So, yeah.
You've been smiling a lot today, and I know that makes your lips
Oh, yeah,
tight.
I have a problem where I smile a lot.
Have we smiled too much? Can you play a little bit more for us?
Sure. Let me think. I could do a little bit of Mozart in G, I think. Okay.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. I have it in my head. Okay, I'll try and do a little Mozart in G. That's about all I can remember. I don't like playing.
Nicely done.
Okay, thanks.
Is that the concerto that you played with the Columbia
Yes, it sounded better then.
Posh. Your inspiration when you started playing the flute, who did you look up to? Who did you want to emulate when you were small?
So, should I tell the story about that? Oh, okay. So, believe it or not, I was at the bottom of my class when I started the flute. I was the only one that couldn't make a sound. And, they kept saying, try and imagine like someone's putting a needle in between your lips and just this small hole. And it just didn't. Finally, I was able to make a sound, and I was really excited about this. So then I started to listen to other flutists, and James Galloway, there was I saw the Titanic, and there was a Titanic recording of him playing. And he is if you guys are familiar with his playing, first of all, he's one of the top flutists in the world, and he has an unbelievable sound. It's he's beautiful. And so I wanted to mimic it. So I went upstairs to my room after I listened to him play, and I was trying to figure out how he vibratoed like that. So I was shaking my flute. I did everything possible, and I was like, I think I figured it out. So we had an audition at school. I mean, it was for the band or something like that, but I played my audition, and then all of a sudden I got first flute because I figured out how to vibrato. So
Even though you were shaking the flute?
I think I was shaking it a little bit at the time. That's not really how you make vibrato. But
supposed to come from...
It's supposed to come from your stomach, but at the time it felt right. So
when you're in middle school or whatever, having vibrato at all, I'm sure made you stand out.
It just made me stand out a little bit. I stood out. So.
Nice. Yeah. This is Jessica Sindell, the principal flutist of the Oregon Symphony. If anybody would like to ask a question of her about playing the flute or what it's like to be in an orchestra, I see a bunch of hands going up. I'm going to work from back to front.
What is the most difficult piece you find for the flute
Oh, gosh.
that you've played?
Ooh, that I've played? Well, you know what? I find the Firebird very difficult, and it's one of the most difficult excerpts that are asked for in an audition. I can't remember if I did it here. I believe I learned it for this audition. Yeah, so I find that very challenging. Thankfully, I've played it since college, so if we do it here, I think we're doing it next season here, actually. I hope I'm right.
One of the interesting things is that since this is Jessica's very first professional job, a lot of this repertoire is brand new to her, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is beautiful. You're approaching all this wonderful music for the very first time.
I mean, the only way for me right now to study it is just listening to thousands of different, not thousands, but as many recordings as I can. And I mean, it's fun because you listen to like a Berlin version or you listen to a Cleveland version, and there's so many interpretations, and I kind of like to mix them in from what I like. So I have a mixed variation right now of things.
And we've already talked about how Jessica got this job before she barely even began her graduate degree. But when you were an undergrad at Eastman, you played in the wind ensemble a lot versus the orchestra, so you know a lot of wind ensemble repertoire.
Right, and if any of you guys are familiar with Eastman, the wind ensemble is well known there, and they've had CDs. I think the person who really changed it or started it was Donald Hunsberger. I could be wrong, but yeah, so I played in that a lot more than orchestra, actually. I don't know why. My teacher assigned the parts, but that was a fantastic experience for me, and I feel like a lot of that repertoire was harder than orchestra because the flutes were the string players. So if you can imagine, it was like an etude. We were constantly playing, and I did that for 4 years. So that was good. Oh.
How many hours a day do you practice?
That's a good question. You know, so before I got this job, I was practicing for like 6 or 7 hours, something crazy. And I had no life when I started grad school. I was like, I really want to win a job. So yeah, I didn't make many, I wasn't there that long. But, I've noticed getting the job here, I need to learn how to practice things quicker because there isn't much time. We go through repertoire like this, So it's more about smarter practicing now, and I mean, not that I didn't do it smartly, but you just got to think quicker on the job. So it's now, I'd say, down to like 3 or 4 hours. Not even on concert days, I try to make it like 1 to 2 because I don't want to overdo my lips, and that's something I didn't know when I first started here. So it was a little bit of a challenge to figure that out. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sure.
Some music historians have asserted that Mozart did not like the flute.
So true.
And I was wondering, for me, it doesn't seem that way from his music, but from a flutist, I'd like to know your perspective on that.
I believe you're correct when you said, I think he wrote that to his father in a letter, as I was doing some studies on the Mozart concerto. But, I mean, I don't understand. His flute writing is incredible. I love playing his symphonies the most. So, I mean, I don't know the answer.
I've heard that myself. I think you're right.
It's kind of unbelievable.
Any other questions for Ms. Sindell? Here's one right here.
Did we hear what city you grew up in?
Oh, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, the 216. So I grew up with the Cleveland Orchestra, which was an incredible experience for me. I think someone back there is raised.
I'm going to hand this microphone down to you.
Jessica, how long does it take a beginning flautist to form a embouchure?
Ooh, well, for me, like I said before, I think it took me, it probably took me a month or something. I was just like playing, it sounded like this. It was like, I was doing that for a month. Just on the head joint, not even. But to really be able to master the embouchure, I feel like I'm still trying to master my embouchure. I couldn't answer that totally for you. I'm sorry.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Is it flutist or flautist?
It's both. Whatever you want. I don't know.
So I know from personal experience that it's hard for string players to play in this hall. Do you have to adjust your playing to the acoustics?
Really good question. Yes. As much as I hate to say it, the rumor is that this hall isn't necessarily the best for woodwinds to play in. For me personally, I feel like it's drier when I play in here, and I'm still getting used to playing in this hall. I'm trying to figure out how to play out more. So I guess you could say the goal is for me to play louder, but without pushing it too much, so it ruins, how I naturally play. And I'm still trying to figure that out. And I think a lot of other woodwinds feel the same. So I hope that answered your question.
I'd like to know what you do with your breath and where it comes from and how it moves in your mouth and what your lips have to do.
Sure. So I took a few opera lessons, actually, to help me out with that.
Really? Singing?
Yeah, just a little bit, but don't make me sing, please. Okay. And also my teacher, Bonnie, at Eastman, would always remind us to just pretend like there's a big tube going down your throat, so everything is super open when you're breathing. And what else can I say? I feel like it comes from a lot from here, actually. I just try and, even if I can't feel my air here, I just try and imagine that's where it's coming from, and that works for me. I don't know why, but every time I think of this when I'm playing, it just kind of opens everything up. I'm trying to think what else I could say for air. It's just the main key word is staying open and loose. And even in the quiet registers, when you have to pucker your lips, you need extra support for that kind of stuff too with your air. So I hope that answers. The air? Oh, I never noticed. Sometimes, if this answers your question, sometimes I feel like when I'm playing, my cheek, the air is moving my cheek. So I guess you could say it does move around in one spot in my mouth, and I do that a lot when I play loud things in the forte dynamic. My cheek kind of wiggles. Maybe that's weird. I don't know. I
have noticed that you, as compared to Alicia, who I think her flute angles, I watch you guys way too closely.
I love it.
You sit very upright, like your flute is almost parallel to the ground.
I do. I think some teachers have specific ways on where to hold your flute. Mine have always just said whatever is natural for you. And right now that's working for me. I need to make sure I can see whoever's conducting clearly and also see my music clearly too. So that's comfortable for me.
Somebody's with their hand, I see.
Do you ever have to breathe through your nose? Do you do the nose?
I think that's circular breathing, and actually Marty can do that, which is really cool. I kind of want to take some lessons from him. And
Marty, the principal oboist.
Yeah, I think that's when you can breathe out of your nose and mouth at the same time, so you don't actually have to stop playing. It's unbelievable. A lot of oboists, I think, have to do that. And I know the lady who owned this flute could do it, but I can't. So it's very hard. But that would be the breathing out of your nose thing. So.
Speaking of Marty, I don't know how many of you were here when I interviewed our principal oboist a few weeks ago, Marty Hebert. Delightful, funny, great guy. I was going to ask you about your relationship with those who sit around you in the orchestra. I've mentioned Alicia a couple of times, who's a great supporter of yours. Marty, on your left, our principal oboist. What's it like sitting next to him?
I look up to all these people that I'm playing with. They have Marty has, I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's been playing in a lot of orchestras before he came here, so he really understands his job. And if there's ever something I'm confused about or there's something that's unclear, he's more than happy to help me along the way, which is really incredible. He's just, and I love his playing, so I don't know what else to say about that. I look up to everyone there.
Time for a couple more questions, I think. Here's one.
Sure.
What kind of extra duties do you have as principal?
Extra duties. Well, I need to make sure that if we need to hire a sub for something, I need to know in advance who I'm going to hire, and even hold auditions for that kind of thing, or how many flute players are needed for this. I need to keep track of who plays on what, so it's fair when someone takes off a piece. I'm sure other people who aren't principal players do this, but I like to make sure I study my scores like crazy so that I know everything that's going on in the symphony, and who to look at. If I have something with Sarah Kwok, then I'm going to try and aim to look at her. Of course, not ignore the conductor, but you want to know everything that's going on at all times as much as you can, even given the little time that we have to learn pieces. So I feel like an extra duty for me. So. Yeah.
Maybe one more question. Oh, I see a hand down here. Sorry.
I was just wondering if she ever played any other instrument besides the flute.
Oh, so I was just telling everybody that I started on the piano, and that was kind of a joke. And I didn't try the violin. Oh, there's Greg. Sorry, Greg. But, no. It's just the flute. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you stuck with it.
Me
Because you're a
too.
beautiful addition to our Oregon
Thank you,
Symphony
Christa.
Orchestra, the young and talented Jessica Sindell. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.